would have thunk that my cat is going to show us live coverage of this full moon in Gemini. I'm going to tell you about it, but they always say, don't tell me, show me. So here's my kitty, my big overweight, but don't tell him. Fast asleep now. This is what he loves to do to paper, but this is what the full moon, this is what the full moon looks like. See that? Mercury, ripped to shreds, right? This is what we're doing. This is our welcome to our full moon in Gemini, folks. Hello, everyone. My name's Irlianna. StarSound Speaks, StarSoundastrology.com. Yes, this is the episode, I think it's 282, and it's going to be on this amazing, rather fraught with a bit of tension, full moon, but I will offer, of course, remedies. There's always a remediation. The solution is always in the chart. The challenge, yes, and the solution. So, for those of you who don't know me, welcome. I practice traditional astrology blended with modern archetypes, if I could get the words out. And I use whole sign houses. So in this video, we're going to talk about the features of this ripped up Mercury. And we're also going to, I'll share with you the houses where these are going to be occurring in your chart. So depending on, I'm going to do it for ascending, rising signs, but you can read for either your rising or your sun, or both. Okay, so this particular full moon is going to be on, oh, let me pull that up here. Oh, full moon with my rainbow chart. Ooh. Because, Mercury is the ruler. Mercury is all things. So here's the full spectrum of color. Mercury is, the full moon is going to be 4 degrees, 51 minutes of Gemini. So it is ruled by Mercury. And it is also, as we can see here, in the bounds of Mercury. So what that means is the bounds is kind of like he's hanging out in Mercury's house, Gemini, but he's also playing by Mercury's rules. Because sometimes you could hang out in a house, but then somebody else is in charge of the rules. So it's a different dynamic. But in this case, it's got a real mercurial influence. Well, what about that? The domicile ruler, he's in Mercury's domain, Mercury's rules. Well, Mercury happens for this full moon to be in exile in Sag. Mercury doesn't want to be. It's like asking Peter Pan to like put on judge's robes and sit in judgment like Judge Judy or something. And he doesn't want that. It's like, that's not an easy place for Mercury. So there's that already is a conflict. The other thing too, if you notice here, you got the sun and Mars in an opposition to the moon. So that can really speak to a lot of combativeness, there's an emotional crisis. Whenever a full moon happens, it's the completion of what was seeded at the new moon. And so 2 weeks ago, we had the new moon. And this is about moving, it was in late Scorpio. Now the moon is in Gemini, opposing the sun in Sag. So there's some spiritual belief crisis that is going on. It can bring about some emotions. What is planted at the new moon comes to fruition at the full moon. And this particular full moon has a complex, it has a rather charged dynamic, because with Mars, combative Mars in under the beams of the sun, having that intense volatility of opposition. So we could be seeing opposition with, spiritual beliefs. My way is the highway. My God is better than your God, and I'm arrogant about it. This is like, these are the kinds of feelings and subjects that might come up or that are at play. And we're trying to be like, hey, let's just all be open-minded and explore things. Because if it didn't have that, Mercury in Gemini is, the full moon in Gemini is like lots of curiosity. Hey, let's go shopping. Let's go here. Let's take advantage of one more Black Friday sale. Let's go to this, that. I could just go to town. But with that opposition, it's creating a bit of a conflict. We also have the sun, being open-minded can cause conflict, because there's also Saturn. If you notice here, Saturn is at that 0, just about to go to 1 degree, right? The last few days here, Saturn at that critical degree, 0 Pisces, and it's making a square. It's making that square with this full moon. So, we could look at that a couple of different ways. I think, to me, when I really feel into it, it's like Saturn being the wise elder, He's like, okay, everybody. He's like almost like the mediator or the umpire. It's like, all right, let's blow the whistle, everybody, and just referee here. Okay, like, can we stop? Let's be patient. Saturn and Pisces, let's have compassion. Let's forgive. Let's chill. Everybody just chill. Find some nice spiritual disciplines to like calm down our busy Gemini mind and not kill each other. Saturn, Sun and Mars, you go in that corner, you sit down, and you sit down, right? Everybody just sit down. So that's actually, to me, that's helpful. It's a mutable T-square, but it's demanding that we need to slow down and think big picture too. Saturn's always about the long term, like, oh, what is that really the wise thing to do, to go off the rails with these combative energies about beliefs and all that? It's like, well, of course, no. So that square is, yes, it's calling forth some emotional crisis here. It is time to get real. He's going to say, look, let's be real here. Let's be disciplined. Let's draw some boundaries. Let's be patient. And so they're all, and I would say too, with Saturn ruling time, time heals all wounds, time heals all emotional off the rails arguments, and space, just like I said, breathe. A few days later, Venus is going to come into, later in the week, Venus is close to the South Node, as you can see here, is 3 degrees away, and she's going to conjunct by the end of the week. I think it's next Sunday. She'll be exactly conjunct at 24 degrees of Libra. And of course, Venus conjunct the South Node, what that could also point to. And then a few days after that, she's going to be squaring. She's already squaring by sign, and in an exact square about a week from now with Pluto. So Venus in South Node ruler, squaring off with Pluto, that's definitely speaking to leaving behind toxic dynamics, especially like family dynamics or dynamics where our equality and fairness is threatened. And it could also extend into, say, government and society, the status quo, the corporate culture world. You could be seeing that. Interesting that the last day, I think, is going to be any day now, with that statute of limitations where women can sue under like the Me Too about sexual harassment, and several famous people, including Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses, were being charged with all these these offenses about rape and sexual abuse. And it's very interesting with Venus coming into that square of Pluto that this is coming up. But in our own lives, where we are feeling where this reparation has to happen from deep within our family dynamic, for sure. So we could be seeing that. So I think a lot of, just generally speaking, this full moon really it speaks to all that, about a conflict in beliefs and philosophical and spiritual and religious beliefs and differences, and where that causes a crisis, where we want to, when you think about Gemini, the fleet-footed messenger, maybe it's time to flee, maybe it's time to leave behind this kind of our propensity to perhaps people please in situations like this. The shadow part of Gemini is like, oh, I'm all things to all people. I'm kind of like jack of all trades. It's like, okay, well, that's not really, Saturn, Mars and the Sun and Saturn, they're all going, okay, let's rethink that. It's like, okay. So I would say perhaps with this, is to, what's the best RX remedy? Well, the two things that come to mind for me are, rip paper. No, just you too can put your teeth on a picture of Mercury for fun, right? Look at the smile on his face. It's like, let's not get too serious, folks. Okay. So I just love this. I'm not throwing it out. This is like, it's like for my puja altar. It's like, okay, got to get a new one. But he's like, no, just be chill. Just keep smiling like Mercury. Keep your hat on, right? Don't lose your head. Mars is like, lose your head over my way, thy way. And he's like, no, we won't. So even if it means get a little frayed on the end, but I think that we will make this through. So the other thing, not just keeping it light, but my recommendation is with Mars, with Gemini ruling the lungs, breathe and keep it light, and none of this means anything, right? So there's some liberation feeling that way. Okay, so the last part of this little chat, we're going to get into the houses. Where does this occur for you in your chart? I'm going to read for your rising sign. Before I do, just to tell you that I am available for readings, private readings, sessions, long-term coaching sessions as well. And you can just go to starsoundastrology.com and look up the offerings. I am also going to be offering by request some astrology. I'm returning to teaching astrology, which I did last year. We had some fun, informal, but very fun, useful, educational, hands-on lessons, how to, in ancient astrology, which is usually not, you don't usually think of ancient astrology with fun, but, I am going to, me and ripped up Mercury, we're going to have fun. So anyway, if you're interested, just shoot me an email, Irlianna at starsoundastrology.com, and we're going to start in January. Okay, so houses. Where is this leaving, where we want to be leaving behind that battlefield, being patient, but also maybe having to leave behind the battlefield, giving up the battlefield about our beliefs and our that's kind of conflict of situation. Okay, we'll start with, this is, by the way, the chart for Washington, D.C., so they're having, it's in the 8th house. So this would be Scorpio Rising. So for all of you Scorpio Risings, you're leaving behind a complex financial situation, a situation maybe with other people's money, maybe some home ideas and beliefs about your, your finances with a partner or shared resources, whether it's a marriage partner or someone else. The 2nd house is for Taurus Rising, so we can just move that forward here. Sorry, not Taurus, what am I saying? Sag Rising. Sag Rising, this is happening in the full moon dynamic is in the 7th house of partnerships. And so maybe there's this conflict of belief about who you are and what your truth is versus people pleasing. I would say just to be really aware about that, people pleasing thing, because, hey, not the highest way, right? This is definitely speaking to what is that when Saturn is like, go back, chill, think about the big picture here. There's a dynamic here that we could all learn from and incorporate into what we want to carry forward. What kind of new foundations of belief do we want to lay down that is going to be long-term? Saturn's not going to be back for 29 years in this sign. So, it's talk about lasting, right? So 7th house, yeah, cutting a toxic relationship maybe, or drawing healthy boundaries, not being all things to all people. For you Cap Risings, this is going to be, here you are, and it will be in your 6th house of physical health. It's also the workplace where we have our day jobs. So, maybe there's a crisis that happens where you gotta like cut an employee or fire somebody, or a coworker leaves, or there's some kind of an exit over beliefs. It could also be about physical health and nutrition, since that house is the joy of Mars. So there may be some crisis that needs to be resolved regarding your nutrition intake, your stories and your beliefs about your health and nutrition. Okay, so Aquarius, all you Aquarius risings, this is going to be in your 5th house, and that is a house for children, dating, sex, dating, romance, relationships, all of that dynamic. So anything in that area of your life is asking for completion, and it might involve leaving a toxic relationship or toxic dynamic or relationship pattern as a result of this full moon in Gemini. Okay, Pisces Rising, it is going to happen in your 4th house. Now, remember, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th are angular houses, so they have a punch, right? It's like the scaffolding of your chart. So your moon in Gemini there for Pisces Rising, this is your house of home and family and your roots, your genealogy. So maybe there's some conflict and stories around these things, conflict of beliefs with family members, and that could cause you to just leave, or at least maybe what needs to happen is to just leave, make peace, and do the chill time that Saturn is asking of you, but also just to we can't be people pleasers for our family, for what we believe in. We can't feel like we have to say something because I want to be accepted by everyone. So it's this crisis of belief. And so other family members might be feeling and sounding maybe very righteous around something that they really believe in. So there's that opportunity here for healing. Crisis leads to opportunity. Okay, so for Aries, this is happening in your third house. And here we go. I love using the bound rulers because it's pretty rainbow. Think about Mercury too. It's like rules like LGBT, Mercury, rainbow. I just, thought of that. And it's certainly embracing a full spectrum of belief and knowledge and curiosity and open-mindedness around all places. And so for this particular one, here we have Aries Rising, and that is the full moon is in your third house, and that's a daily routine. It's our communications and our connections with our siblings and our aunts, uncles, relatives, various, systems of learning, like school, elementary school, lower level learning. And so the full moon there is this crisis that needs to be resolved regarding things of that nature. Maybe it's about leaving behind some toxic stories that we have around our relatives and our belief systems with as they pertain to people in that all third house matters. Okay, then we have, moving forward, Taurus Rising. It's in your second house, which is the values that you hold. The values, the things that are important to you. So all the stories you have, and maybe there's a crisis that involves what you believe in and what needs to shift. Maybe there's some stories that are not helping you around your own self-esteem and your own value and sense of as an individual. So that would be, maybe you're leaving a personal finances, right? Maybe you're leaving a financial situation that you are feeling conflicted about. Gemini rising. Okay, so the Gemini, all you Geminis or Gemini risings, this is in your first house of physical appearance. The moon rules the physical body, and it is going to, so it will speak to our personality, our physical body. You think about showing up as that gregarious, social loving, bounce and bounce around and have fun and just be like Peter Pan, just ultimate Gemini. The trickster and all. Maybe there's some little crisis that people are like, hey, knock it off, and so we're trying to draw a boundary. Maybe we're leaving behind feeling like we have to be a people pleaser to the world, for everybody, and to consider another narrative. Okay, for you Cancer risings, you have it in your 12th house, which is that house of the joy of Saturn. So it's being very this is the place of solitude and contemplation. And it can also feel like a place where there's, codependency and addictions and feeling like savior martyr. And maybe it's about releasing and giving up that savior martyr victim archetype. And, it certainly will come into play here. It's also your mental health. If the 6th house is your physical health, the 12th house is your mental health. So the ideas, Gemini, right? Mercury is in Sagittarius, like I said earlier. So looking at that big picture deep in contemplation. I also find it interesting, by the way, that Mercury is conjunct the galactic center. So I haven't put that in on my software here, but the galactic center is about 26 degrees of Sag, and that is the truth teller. Sometimes they call it the whistleblower point. And so it's, think about that, the conflict that comes up when we have to tell the truth about ourselves. And maybe it's a place of being honest and leaving behind all the delusions and illusions we have around our beliefs and our thoughts and beliefs and ideas, about ourselves and our emotions too. And family, moon always speaks not just to the emotions and one's sense of security, but also one's family. So that's Cancer rising. And then we go on to Leo rising. This is going to be in your 11th house, which is the house of friends and peers, your colleagues, and maybe it's people that you do business with, as Mercury, you know, in the sign of Gemini. It's about business, merchants, and buying and selling, things of that nature. So there's maybe some crisis that needs to be resolved regarding your friends, and leaving behind maybe friends that are not in alignment with your values. And to, you know, with that Saturn square, it's like saying, okay, let's, you know, wake up and smell the coffee here. In this case, there's some unconscious beliefs that you have here that you need to get present to, that will assist you in really realizing the potential of what this full moon can bring. Okay, then we have Virgo rising, and this is happening in your 10th house of career. So you might be having to leave behind a career, or there's a conflict that goes on with your family versus your career in the 10th house. If you're not working, it could be just your 10th house is the face you show the world. It's really like your public reputation. So there could be a new narrative that wants to come out of that situation. And then we have ding, ding, Libra rising. This is going to be in your 9th house, the joy of God, as the ancients called it. And that is about, you know, higher truth and wisdom, esoteric wisdom and philosophy, spiritual and religious beliefs. It could also be long distance travel or foreign cultures. So there's some kind of crisis of belief regarding these things that are getting worked out, with Saturn in the 6th, making that it's a mutable T-square. As we can see, it's all mutable signs. So something that needs to shift regarding beliefs, and you know, coming into integrity around maybe some conflicts that we may be having, leaving behind a field of study, you know, or a spiritual belief that, you know, maybe it's time for it to be cut loose and let go. All right, so I think that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed my ripped up picture. Thanks to my kitty, who is still sleeping, fast asleep. I was going to put him on camera, but I don't want to look like this. Anyway, I hope you have a good one and a wonderful full moon, and I will see you soon. Thanks so much for listening. And by the way, if you like this information, or please feel I can't talk. Please feel free to share and subscribe, comment. Of course, I love all your comments. I like to keep it light. Leo, what can I say? Anyway, all right, you guys have a great one. See you soon. Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundastrology.com. Namaste.